Hello, this is David de Hilster. I'm a critical thinker, science dissident, and I'm here to tell you the truth about science, something your university professor won't tell you, the mass media won't tell you, and certainly the science evangelist won't tell you. Today I'm going to stay on the dissident side, not go over to the mainstream side, which is usually what I'm ranting and raving about because they use funny words. They don't know their own assumptions of what they're saying, and of course, there's a lot of it that's just bad science. But today we're going to stay on the side of the more critical thinking side, those thousands of scientists outside the mainstream who are doing really great work. One of them is Bill Erickson, who is expansion tectonicist. That's a person who believes the Earth is expanding. It's not just sitting there with a fixed radius like plate tectonics says. I'm one of those people, and I'm not here to talk about whether you're convinced of that or not. Today he's asking a very interesting question, and I wanted to address that. He's asking the question basically, is plate tectonics a subset of expansion tectonics? And that's what he has concluded. And let me read some of what he said. Over the past 3 years, I've changed my mind on plate tectonics. I've formally viewed plate tectonics and expansion tectonics as an either-or proposition, with one true or the other false. However, I've now come to the conclusion that plate tectonics is basically correct, but it is incomplete. More to the point, I think the basic problem is that plate tectonics, the plate tectonic paradigm, the unstated assumptions that geologists take for granted, is based on the incorrect premise, namely that the Earth's radius has remained constant over time, which of course is the fundamental difference between plate tectonics paradigm and the expansion tectonics. I now consider plate tectonics to be a subset of expansion tectonics. And then he goes on to say the reason he thought that is because plate tectonics really couldn't even start as any type of idea unless it was 600 million years ago, when of course when the crusts of the Earth, when it was much smaller, the Earth broke apart and started expanding. And that's what he's saying. It's sort of strange a little bit because plate tectonics really whole assumption of that the Earth's radius is fixed had gone through a real problem. That is, when we saw that the oceans were in fact there were rifts in the ocean where the crust was expanding, we had the plate tectonicists who believed the radius had to stay the same had to say, okay, that part that's being made in the ocean has to go underneath the continent like this, because otherwise it should be getting bigger. But in fact, we believe that it is getting bigger. So it's sort of strange a little bit, Bill, I think, to say that, well, plate tectonics really only started 600 million years ago, 200 million years, whenever the plates cracked and started, in fact, expanding. They start expanding. So I'm not sure I agree so much with that. Also, the idea of explaining data is interesting. That is, plate tectonics has survived, and people, geologists, I know one of them, I'm a great admirer of his science, don't agree with his idea that plate tectonics is right. But yeah, the idea of subduction, plates that are going under each other, it's complicated. The expansion of the Earth is not uniform, and because of that, it creates a lot of different scenarios and things that plate tectonics can perfectly explain. I'm now going to go to the Natural Philosophy's Wikipedia, and Bill had said something here later that, to paraphrase Warren Carey, very famous geologist, Mother Earth is indeed a clever old girl. Well, it turns out that Carey is no longer with us. He died in the 1990s. His successor was Dr. James Maxwell. He's going to be at our conference this year in Vancouver. Really great guy. And he has written probably the encyclopedic entry for expansion tectonics. You can find that at wiki.naturalphilosophy.org, where we can actually place and put our new ideas or things like expansion tectonics in a place in a Wikipedia, which won't happen in Wikipedia because they go for consensus. If it's not what everybody, the consensus mainstream thinks, it's considered fringe science. Of course, science never goes forward that way, so there's a real problem with the idea of Wikipedia being a consensus organization. So we have these pages, and this is, if you ever can get a chance, go to wiki.naturalphilosophy.org, read Expansion Tectonics. It is the best encyclopedic introduction to expansion tectonics. And there he says and answers the question that Bill Erickson is posting, and is that he is saying that plate tectonics is a subset, but in reality what I really think we have is that in fact it is a different idea, and this is really said best by Dr. James Maxwell, the foremost person in expansion tectonics, right. So he says, apart from its implicit assumption of a constant radius Earth, there's very little data in conventional plate tectonics that is incompatible with the largely historical expansion theory, and vice versa. What he's saying is that both of them must agree with the data. That's true. So there's very little data in conventional. One of the things is conventional plate tectonics. Expansion tectonics in the theory has to explain. It's just not possible for you to have a plate tectonic, expansion tectonics, and not explain data. The difference is expansion tectonics explains way more data. And so that's really, really important for us to remember. And on the opposite end, plate tectonics only describes a smaller set of data that expansion tectonics explains. But the problem is it's based on a wrong assumption. Plate tectonics is based on a fixed radius Earth. So no matter how much you say it's a valid subset of expansion tectonics, I would say absolutely not. Can it explain data? Does it have ways and equations and techniques to go and examine things? And are good things come out of it? Absolutely. Plotting the southern pole and its movement is very important to expansion tectonics. Problem is you can't say it's a valid subset of expansion tectonics. My opinion, it's an invalid theory because the basic premise it has is wrong. And when you have a basic premise, it's wrong. So I disagree with you, Bill, in that I do not think it is a subset of expansion tectonics. Plate tectonics is a subset of expansion tectonics. I believe it's an invalid subset of expansion tectonics, but it's not a complete subset either because it has the assumption that the Earth's fixed radius. So to say it's a subset, it has to include everything in there, and that's not true. Expansion tectonics does not include the assumption that the Earth's radius is fixed. Therefore, there's parts of things that plate tectonics assumes and data, etc., that doesn't exist within it. So you can't be a subset unless you're all within that. And that's my argument. Again, Eric, this is a very nitpick, but I think it's important. I think your conclusion isn't correct. It's close, but it isn't correct. That data can be explained by plate tectonics, that is explained by expansion tectonics, but I believe that it is not a subset. So anyways, that's all for now. And remember, don't take what anyone says on faith. Stay critical, stay thinking. I'm Dave de Hilster, your science therapist. Ciao for now.